For more on this World Series, let's welcome in Shawn Gregory, covers sports for Time Magazine and Time.com, Cubs Fever. And you were with the Cubs and covering them for a little bit, Shawn. And, you know, for so much that's been made about the baseball gods and October magic and curses, what you found is that Joe Maddon and his staff are very much rooted in pragmatism, data, and essentially science.
Yeah, it's very clinical. You know, you walk into their locker room in Pittsburgh where I was, and they have like 7 computers set up, big screens. It was like a NASA command center.
Oh, God.
And, you know, you try to, you know, you can't really see exactly what they're talking about and what they're seeing. It looks very complex, but you see the interaction. So there's like this guy, Mike Borzello, who's like this kind of secret weapon, a secret brain there. He's called the Brain Trust. He's a catching instructor. And he breaks down scouting reports before games. They have very clinical meetings between, even in the dugout, exchange ideas, exchange data. So this whole Moneyball, Theo Epstein analytics thing is very real.
What did you find, especially when it comes to Kyle Hendricks, the Cubs pitcher?
You know, he's a very measured guy. He doesn't show a lot of emotion. He's the perfect guy. He went to Dartmouth, is very analytical and economics major. He's kind of taking the information and using it at a whole different level. He needs, a guy like that needs the information because he's not an overpowering pitcher.
Yeah, I like they call him the professor and he went to an Ivy League school. Of course, Joe Maddon has said to his team, the connection to the past is very important, but the Cubs' past is full of negativity. Shawn, how is he going to navigate that?
You know, I think he's a guy who keeps things positive. When I was there, he had a T-shirt that said, "Try not to Sucktober," you know, like just goofy stuff like that. You know, he has strobe lights and pajama parties and all this. It's a very loose environment, and the player, when you talk about it, they're very grateful for him helping them keep in the moment.
Shawn, when Dexter Fowler bats for the Cubs tonight, he will be making history. No African-American player has ever suited up for the Cubs in a World Series. Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier in 1947. The last time the Cubs were in the World Series was 1945. What does this moment mean?
It's remarkable, and it just goes to show what the Cubs fans have been waiting for, what the city's been waiting for, and the connection that could be made. You know, like, yeah, you know, going back to Jackie Robinson, you know, so the first African-American player to wear a Chicago Cubs uniform in the World Series, it's pretty special.
Yeah, absolutely. Cubs are favored. They won 103 games this season. Should that mean anything in the World Series?
Well, I mean, I think on paper they are the better team. Obviously, their pitching staff is amazing. The young hitters, you know, just a joy to watch. But there are some recent statistical trends that go against the Cubs. They had the best major league record this year. Only 4 of the last 25 World Series winners had the best record in baseball. Also, home field advantage has been a big deal lately. 6 of the 7 last world champions had home field advantage. Cleveland has home field advantage this time around. So, you know, plenty of reasons for hope for Cubs fans, but also I hate to bring up these little things that could curse them again.
No, listen, you got to give the Indians fans just a little bit of hope there. They're underdogs as well. They're both teams that are underdogs. Shawn Gregory, you'll be out in Chicago for the World Series.
Yeah.
Enjoy that, and we'll catch
Maggie.
up with you soon.
Great, Maggie. Thanks.
Last night's Dancing with the Stars saw our own athlete reporter James Hinchcliffe take the evening's top score. The IndyCar driver is now tied for first place with another athlete you may have heard of, former wideout Calvin Johnson. This week, the show featured dances from all different eras in history, and Hinchcliffe was doing the jitterbug. Why not? Here's James's weekly report from behind the scenes.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. You are hearing right now live behind me Calvin Johnson Jr. doing his jive with his partner Lindsay. James Hinchcliffe here, athlete reporter for SI Now and Extra Mustard. We're backstage once again during the live show, week 7 here on Dancing with the Stars, season 23. I gotta say, it's been a tough week. Mainly because on top of our main dances, we also have a team dance. So for the first time, we had to learn 2 routines this week. That's a lot more practice, a lot more rehearsing, a lot more choreography to remember. Not easy for any of us that, let's face it, aren't dancers. But we're making it work. I'm part of what's called Team Pass. We have Calvin Johnson, we have Ryan Lochte, 2 other athletes on our team. We also have Maureen McCormick. We are performing a routine that takes place, let's just say, in the past. and it's going to be pretty cool. Here in the Red Room, busy as always. Social media just blowing up, I bet. What's everybody liking so far tonight?
They're all loving you.
That's not true. Oh, this one's going to be good. Jen and Gleb are rocking the 70s. I'm pretty sure Gleb's hair, that's his actual hair, just when he doesn't wash it. As you can see backstage here, it is always bananas. It's always busy. There's always stuff going on. We love standing and watching everyone else's routines. We can see it all backstage with all the wonderful hair and makeup people that keep us looking pretty. And then you've got Dennis, who got stuck in the grunge rock.
Social media.
Just look at this outfit, though. Artems is the best. Dennis is going to be an hour number as well on our jitterbug, as is this guy here. This is Alan.
10 seconds. Hey.
Alan's one of the troop dancers. He's joining us on our jitterbug adventure this evening. Thanks for your help, Alan.
Anything for you, James.
You know, one guy's already performed his routine tonight. He's already ready for the group number, Mr. Ryan Lochte. How'd your rumba go?
Really bad.
Did it go bad? It looked good.
It went all right.
It went all right.
I'm getting ready for the team dance.
Getting ready for the team band.
We're going to rock it.
Team Pass is going to get this, man.
Team Pass all the way.
Here's the thing about Team Pass. You got Calvin Johnson Jr., you got Ryan Lochte, you got me. You got guys that know how to work on teams.
Best male dancer ever on this show. What? We're going to win.
We're gonna try. We're gonna try hard. It's gonna be good, man. We got a couple guys that know what they're doing in a teamwork situation. We made Calvin do all the huddles. Every time we had a rehearsal, he had to run the huddles because, let's be honest, we don't know what we're doing when it comes to that. Ryan and I don't do huddles. Big night here, Aaron night, team dance night. Hope you guys watched or are watching. Thanks so much again for tuning in. SI Now and Extra Mustard. James Hinchcliffe signing off for tonight. We'll be back for more, with more next week. Hopefully, if we make it through. We need your votes, America. Don't forget, because next week is Halloween night. And I am super excited at the concept we have for Halloween night. So don't let me down, America. Vote often, vote lots. Thanks so much.
The NBA season kicks off tonight. 3 games on the slate, including both teams who were in the finals a year ago. Although the Cavs and Warriors won't be playing each other, you're going to have to wait until Christmas for that rematch. We will get our first glimpse of Kevin Durant with his new team in a game that actually counts. The Warriors will host the Spurs. For more, I'm pleased to welcome in Turner Sports NBA analyst Stu Jackson. Of course, you can watch a doubleheader action tonight. The NBA on TNT begins at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Stu, you were once the executive vice president of basketball operations, which means you were responsible for penalizing on-court misconduct, and that's where I want to start. Draymond Green's leg kicks and suspensions in Game 5 of the finals may have cost Golden State the title. What would you do if Green kicks another player this season?
Well, you know, part of the penalties that are issued formally and also in today's game are based upon, you know, past precedent. So I suspect that if Draymond Green engages in what I would term, what the NBA terms as unnatural basketball acts, that he would suffer the consequences based upon his history with those types of acts and be penalized severely. You know, and I think it's important to note that, you know, this is not anything personal that the NBA has against Draymond Green or any of us have against Draymond Green. This is all about protecting player safety. And when, you know, you're kicking people in places that are very dangerous, certainly it has to come with some consequence just to protect, you know, the entire, you know, player pool.
Yeah, of course, he's going to have to get that under control. Now, this was another big topic that's basically hit the entire sports world, and that's player protests during the national anthem. If you were still in your role as the vice president of basketball operations, what would you do if a player decided to take a knee for the anthem?
Nothing, actually. In this day and age, as long as the player himself individually can articulate the reasons why, and certainly in today's environment, there are some pretty prominent, you know, reasons why a player might protest, much in the same way that Colin Kaepernick would did formerly. I do nothing because I think it's great, and we have to look at the bigger picture. The fact that NBA players who've always been on the cutting edge globally, not only with social issues but fashion or music or whatever, and here finally we have players that are making it known that they're unhappy with the social conditions in our country, and to exemplify their displeasure, to actually do something in support of that, I think is terrific. So I'm not Adam Silver, and it's not probably something that the NBA wants on its plate, but the fact that players are willing to voice their opinion, I think, is only a positive.
So what do you think would happen, though, if a player took a knee this season? We've seen in the past, and going back to 1996, when you were coaching in the league, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf was fined and suspended for sitting for the anthem. What do you think would happen if that was the case this season?
Well, it's interesting. It's yet to be seen. The NBA has specific rules about how players and teams are supposed to line up during the anthem. They're very specific in terms of how you're supposed to stand in a respectful manner for the anthem. I mean, that's currently the rule in the books. But again, times have changed. They've changed since 1996. Many people are aware of what's going on in the country today. And I think that, there are different ways to actually show, if you're a player, that you acknowledge the issue, that you respect the issue, that you want to make it known that something should be done, that doesn't necessarily have to include sitting down for the national anthem. Some more recent examples that teams have elected to pursue are showing a team unity by interlocking arms and still standing at attention. Certainly, there have been athletes in other sports, professionally and also amateur sports, where they have taken a knee, which to me is also shows that you're acknowledging the issue and not in a disrespectful manner. So, I think we could see this during the NBA season. And, again, my own personal opinion, I think it's great that players want to have and exhibit a voice.
Yeah, we appreciate your thoughts on that. Final one before I let you go. I want to tap into your expertise as a former NBA coach. The Cavaliers are going to receive their rings tonight. And while the feelings are going to be joyful, rightfully so, it wasn't all that long ago that Kevin Love's status on the team was in serious doubt. So now that the team has won the title, does that mean we'll no longer question whether Love is a perfect fit in Cleveland?
Well, I think that question will remain as long as there is some uncertainty about what Kevin Love's role is within the team. And that will always exist still if the team has some uncertainty about what Kevin's role is. And that was the problem. That was the rub. Certainly having yet another season with the Cavaliers, many of those previous issues about how to utilize him offensively, what his role is in terms of their big three with LeBron and Kyrie Irving, if they are ironed out and the sacrificing has taken place and the offense runs smoothly, I think it's a non-issue. If we run into a period whereby there's some uncertainty about how Kevin Love is utilized, whether it's on the perimeter, whether it's on the post, whether it's getting him on the move, if there's still some uncertainty or some kinks in the operation of their offense, I think people will still question and it'll still be a problem. We can't overlook the fact or let the championship in and of itself mask those previous issues. It's up to the Cavaliers to really, provide the answers and show everyone that they're a smooth operating offensive machine.
Stu Jackson, always appreciate your thoughts. You spent a lifetime in basketball, now an analyst for Turner Sports, and the NBA. Stu, thank you so much. We appreciate your time.
Oh, thanks for having me, Maggie.
Thank you. All right, the NBA on TNT kicks off with a doubleheader tonight. It begins at 5 p.m. Eastern, and NBA TV opens their game coverage with a doubleheader on Saturday, October 29th. Good stuff there. Turning to the NFL, and unless you're the one who picked Jay Ajayi off the waiver wire, you could probably use some help in securing new talent for your fantasy team. Here's SI's lead fantasy writer, Michael Beller, with more.
12 teams, nearly 1/4 of the league, go on bye the next 2 weeks. Your depth will be tested like it hasn't to this point of the season. These 4 players can lengthen your bench and come in handy in the next few weeks as spot starters. Jamison Crowder had his best game of the season last week, catching 7 passes for 108 yards. He's been mostly useful all season, up to 31 receptions for 391 yards and 3 touchdowns, and has scored double-digit fantasy points 3 times in 7 games. With Jordan Reed likely out in Week 8, Crowder should retain a large role in the Washington passing game. The second-year player out of Duke will be a great play this week and can remain fantasy relevant for the rest of the season. Jack Doyle has found the end zone both of the last 2 weeks, games that Dwayne Allen has missed all or most of with an ankle injury. All told, Doyle has 13 receptions for 131 yards and 2 scores in the Colts' last 2 games. Only T.Y. Hilton has had more than Doyle's 14 targets in that span. With Allen likely out at least a few more weeks, Doyle will remain the team's starting tight end. He's turning that into a lucrative spot, aided by all the injuries the team has at receiver as well. So long as he's starting, Doyle is a top 10 fantasy tight end. Vernon Davis isn't quite the fantasy option Doyle is, but he's in just as secure a position in the short term. Jordan Reed has missed Washington's last 2 games because of a concussion, and he's unlikely to make the trip to London for the team's matchup with the Bengals in Week 8. While filling in for Reed the last 2 weeks, Davis has caught 8 passes for 129 yards and a score. Even if you only use Davis for 1 week, he's worth an ad in advance of Sunday. Be aware, however, that Washington's bye looms in Week 9. Anquan Bolden has been quietly productive for the Lions this season, hauling in 32 balls for 272 yards and 4 touchdowns. He has scored in both of the team's last 2 games, which isn't a coincidence given that tight end Eric Ebron has been out with an ankle injury. The Lions don't have another pass-catching threat at the tight end position, so the responsibility for being a weapon in the middle of the field has fallen to Bolden. His numbers may not jump off the page, but he's making the most of his opportunities. The Lions are not one of the 12 teams going on bye in Week 8 or Week 9, making Bolden a capable fill-in for the next 2 weeks. That'll do it for the waiver wire heading into Week 8. I'll be back with all of you right here on Friday to talk stardom or situm. Until then, happy hunting on the wire.
New York Giants head coach Ben McAdoo said Monday that talks have begun about what the organization is going to do with Josh Brown. Brown was placed on the commissioner's exempt list, essentially paid leave, after his long history with domestic violence became public. Yesterday, I spoke with Don Macpherson, a member of the College Football Hall of Fame and a man who's dedicated his post-football career to combating domestic violence. In the case of Josh Brown, the public was able to learn about his mindset. This was very unique. He said he saw himself as a god and his wife was his slave. When you read that, what was your reaction?
Well, I think that's kind of emblematic of somebody who's probably a little disturbed, a little bit of an egomaniac, a narcissist. I think you can pull a lot out of that statement. It's a very damning statement for someone who's been charged with domestic violence, because it does show that he felt that he had absolute power over someone else. Is there something that we collectively, people who love sports and care about athletes and who want sports to be healthy and good, is there some way that we can make it so that being masculine and being aggressive doesn't necessarily lead down this road? Well, that's exactly the whole point of the work that I do, is about talking to men about what it means to be a whole man. There's nothing wrong with being tough and strong and athletic and even dominating in that regard. But we're also, as men, loving and caring and nurturing and vulnerable. And I think those are the lessons that we need to instill in young people. We have these conversations very often with professional athletes, but the reality is Josh Brown learned this behavior as a young boy. And he came into the league with these attitudes. You are so involved at that youth level and education. What are some practical examples you have for parents out there who are listening, for coaches out there who are listening or watching? What can they do to make sure they are sending that right message? Well, obviously, it's daily modeling of respectful behavior. But there's another underlying, I think, message that I always try to put forward to coaches, especially, and to parents who want their sons to be tough and be good athletes and be strong and all those qualities that we want in sports. But we have to do that and without doing it at the expense of girls. And one of the title of the lecture that I've given for more than 20 years is "You Throw Like a Girl." And it's this language that, when I first looked at that language, I called it the language of sports, but it's really the language of misogyny and sexism. And what that says, that language says, you throw like a girl, or don't be a sissy. You're saying that women and girls are less than.
When you see how the league and the Giants have handled this particular situation with Josh Brown, is there something that stands out that's most troubling to you?
I think, the problem with the league is that the league is a business. They celebrate, and we celebrate in football especially, the violence of it and the sort of the team camaraderie of it, and the loyalty to team and the loyalty to fan base and all those things. But that really does run afoul when you start looking at the behavior of individuals, and at what point do we close ranks and try to stand behind our teammate or stand behind our player, and at what point do we say that we're a business that wants to be fan and family friendly? Then we have to decide what kind of business we want to be. And I think that's really where the NFL is really in a difficult place right now, because they have to decide what kind of business do they want to be, what kind of community partner do they want to be, because right now they're choosing the business, which is why these mistakes and these sort of mistakes in terms of how they handle the aftermath, that's all because they're trying to protect the business.
So in your opinion, what role should the NFL be playing when it comes to their players and domestic violence?
Well, I think education is really a key. And I do think that there's an issue when you have the Players Association and the league who are not lockstep in this. When they don't really come together and say, if we are really interested in educating our players about this issue, a 90-minute session once a year is not going to cut it. A 90-minute session for football players is not going to change that socialized behavior and thinking. And so the league needs to, if they're serious about education, it needs to be a much more robust program than what they're currently able to do. We're talking about cultural change, and it doesn't happen in that format.
Yeah, it looks like right now their new domestic violence policy is falling short as well. Don Macpherson, so good to talk with you. Thank you so much for lending your expertise. We appreciate it.
My pleasure, always.
Very interesting perspective from Don there, and that's going to do it for this Tuesday edition of SI Now. Tomorrow, we'll hear from Celtics legend and president of basketball operations in Boston, Danny Ainge. That's at 1 p.m. Eastern, but until then, you can keep up with all the latest sports news on SI.com, and don't forget to follow us on Twitter at SI Now Live. Enjoy a great night in the world of sports. We'll see you tomorrow.
The Cardinals and Seahawks went to overtime tied at 3, and after exchanging field goals on their first possessions, both teams missed game-winning field goals inside of 30 yards.